Imagine a 20th century without major wars. This exercise in alternate history helps us understand the profound impacts of global conflicts and consider how different the world might have been. Without World War I, also known as the Great War, began in 1914, primarily due to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. The war pitted the Allies, including France, the United Kingdom, and Russia, against the Central Powers, mainly Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. If this war had never occurred, European empires like the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires might have lasted longer. Without the war, the economic and social upheavals that led to the Russian Revolution and the rise of Soviet communism under Lenin would have been unlikely. The absence of World War I also means the Treaty of Versailles would never have been imposed on Germany. This treaty's harsh terms contributed to the economic hardships and nationalistic fervor that eventually led to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. Without these conditions, extremist ideologies might have been less likely to gain traction, potentially preventing the rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe. Without World War II, which erupted in 1939, was a direct consequence of unresolved issues from World War I and the aggressive expansionist policies of Nazi Germany led by Adolf Hitler. In a world without World War II, there would be no Holocaust, one of history's darkest chapters, where 6 million Jews and millions of others were systematically murdered by the Nazis. Without the devastation of World War II, Europe and Asia would have experienced fewer upheavals. The Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin would not have expanded its influence over Eastern Europe, leading to a different Cold War scenario. The division of Germany, which became a focal point of Cold War tensions, would not have occurred, potentially leading to a more unified Europe. The Cold War and its absence. The Cold War, primarily a standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union, lasted from the late 1940s until the early 1990s. It was characterized by nuclear arms races, espionage, and proxy wars. Without World War II, the geopolitical landscape of the Cold War would have been significantly altered. The United States and the Soviet Union might not have emerged as superpowers, leading to a different balance of power globally. The absence of a direct military confrontation in Korea, 1950-1953, means a united Korea, lessening U.S. involvement in Asia and altering regional dynamics. Without the Korean and Vietnam Wars. The Korean War began in 1950, when North Korean forces, backed by the Soviet Union and China, invaded South Korea. The United States and United Nations forces intervened to support South Korea. In the absence of this conflict, Korea might have remained united, potentially under a less authoritarian regime if influenced by pre-war developments. The Vietnam War, 1955-1975, which saw the United States fighting to prevent the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, resulted in significant social upheaval in the U.S. and massive devastation in Vietnam. Without this war, Vietnam might have developed more smoothly, avoiding the extensive destruction and loss of life. The anti-war movement, which profoundly impacted American society and politics, would have taken a different form, possibly focusing on other social issues. Middle Eastern conflicts and Saddam Hussein. The Middle East has been a hotspot of conflict throughout the 20th century. The absence of major wars like the Six-Day War, 1967, and the Yom Kippur War, 1973, both primarily involving Israel and neighboring Arab states, would have led to a less volatile region. These wars, driven by long-standing territorial disputes and nationalistic fervor, reshaped the political landscape of the Middle East. In Iraq, Saddam Hussein's aggressive policies led to multiple conflicts. The Iran-Iraq War, 1980-1988, was initiated by Saddam Hussein's invasion of Iran, driven by territorial disputes and the desire to curb the influence of the Iranian Revolution. This war resulted in a prolonged and devastating conflict with massive casualties on both sides. Saddam Hussein was also responsible for the Gulf War, 1990-1991, triggered by Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. The U.S.-led coalition's intervention to liberate Kuwait showcased the global community's response to aggressive, expansionist policies. Without these conflicts, the Middle East would have experienced different developmental trajectories, potentially with less external intervention and more regional cooperation. The Falklands Conflict. The Falklands War, 1982, between Argentina and the United Kingdom, was primarily over the disputed sovereignty of the Falkland Islands. In the absence of this conflict, the dispute might have remained unresolved diplomatically, avoiding military confrontation, but continuing to strain UK-Argentina relations. Technological and social changes. The absence of major wars in the 20th century would have significantly impacted technological advancements and social changes. Many technologies, such as radar, jet engines, and nuclear power, were accelerated by wartime needs. Without the destructive impetus of war, technological progress might have been slower but steadier. Social changes, including the civil rights movement and women's increased participation in the workforce, were influenced by wartime dynamics. A more stable century might have resulted in these changes occurring more gradually. To review, a 20th century without major wars presents a more stable, yet possibly less rapidly advancing world. The long-term impacts on political, social, and technological fronts would be profound, highlighting the complex interplay between conflict and progress. This exercise in reimagining history underscores the significant role wars have played in shaping the modern world and the potential for a different, albeit more gradual, path of development.